Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ambassador's Lounge. The co-host for today's program is Ambassador Riaz Bukhari, and we have a very special guest with us today, Ambassador Ashraf Jehangir Qazi. Sir, welcome to the Ambassador's Lounge.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador Ashraf Jehangir Qazi has served as Pakistan's ambassador in Damascus, in East Germany, former East Germany, Moscow, Beijing, Washington. He was also our High Commissioner in New Delhi. Besides all these diplomatic assignments, Mr. Ashraf Jehangir Qazi was also, in fact, he led UN missions in Iraq and Sudan. Because of his assignment in Damascus, it was logical for us to invite him and to talk to him about the recent developments in Damascus. As you are all aware, that the 13-year war in Syria, which started in 2011 and which accounted for almost 500,000 lives and 12 million refugees, ended just in 12 days. Mr. Bashar al-Assad was forced to flee the country. He took asylum in Moscow. Presently, an interim setup has been put in place, which is headed by Mr. Muhammad al-Bashir, a very close friend and associate of Abu Muhammad al-Julani, who is also the head of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Sir, my question first to you is, Assad regime, it turned to dust in no time, despite a well-trained army, despite a well-equipped army. The Russians were training them since 2015, and it was supposed to be a very well-disciplined army. Why did the Syrian defense melt so easily at the hand of the rebels?
Well, thank you very much. And it's a great pleasure to be on Ambassador's Lounge. I've been here once before, so thank you for the opportunity of coming again. The developments in Syria are truly epochal. They have brought a whole era to an end, and we do not know what the new era, which has opened up before us, will offer. The Syrian army, as you quite rightly say, its collapse took the whole world by surprise, because there was a time when the Syrian army was known for its ability to fight. I mean, you know, it had during previous wars even taken a large Golan and all, you know, and although Golan always belonged to Syria. So, but the collapse of, in retrospect now, a lot of the analyses which are taking place are indicating that this collapse was actually over a long period of time, because the Syrian army had over the years, you know, this very famous saying by, Lord Acton, that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And the Syrian army and the Syrian president, whose father was an Air Force general, the head of the Air Force also, I mean, Hafiz al-Assad and all, and he was his son. So absolute, and they belonged to the minority Alawi community, which from relatively speaking is a small minority from Latakia. And they had been ruling for 54 years. So absolute power corrupts absolutely had actually taken place. The Syrian army, according to one report that I was looking at, the generals were earning something like $40 a month because of the state of the Syrian economy. And the generals have to live, and have to live decently, in order to command the respect of the people over whom they have power and influence. Whereas the parties opposing them, which had the backing of almost certainly Israel and the United States, reportedly this Hayat al-Tahrir al-Sham, their soldiers were getting something like $2,000 a month. So if you pay your generals $40 a month, you can imagine what the soldiers had, and how would they feed themselves. And when you have this kind of economic decline also, because Syria was the target of so many sanctions from the United States, even from the UN, from the European community, then a country under sanctions sort of, the only way the people can survive is through a black market. And the black market leads to total corruption. Corruption of the people or anybody in authority, because they have to live, they have to survive, they have to provide for their children, their families, not only food but also other needs, medical, education, the whole lot and all. So then it becomes, as somebody put it very well, I was listening, he said, the Americans, because the question was asked, how were the Americans taken by surprise? Because they were behind the whole thing. And it is true that the Americans for the past, well, almost 50 years, 54 years is the regime, but the Americans have been trying to replace the regime in Syria for almost 50 years itself. And so and this particular incident which has now taken place, bringing an end to the Bashar al-Assad regime, surprised everyone, including the Americans. So how come the Americans? And as somebody said, the Americans were cutting down the tree of the regime since a very, very long time. But even the Americans didn't know that the tree had rotted from within. So the Americans thought this is a very big tree, a very large tree. It will take time for it to fall. Well, what happened? It fell immediately because of the rot inside, which even the Americans were not totally aware of. So the effects of corruption hollow out even the strongest of states, and where you don't have good governance, and you have the people who are completely alienated and living in fear, then of course this kind of corruption begins, and they survive off what is known as the unofficial economy or the black economy, and they then become available at any price because they've got to survive. And that is why when things happen, when a tree is rotting, its collapse is sudden. It isn't gradual that you get a whole warning, it starts creaking and then it starts making a larger noise, and then you see that this tree is about to fall, I need to get out of the way. No, suddenly it'll survive storms, but the slightest wind will suddenly sort of collapse the whole thing because it's rotting. So that, I think, was a very good analogy which I listened to, and it was by an American Syrian expert, even on Iraq. You might have heard him, Scott Ritter.
Right, yes.
Yes. And he was part of the American army, occupation army in Iraq. But since then, he's seen the truth and his views have turned enormously. He says, we've been committing nothing but crimes. And he does a lot of work, and he's very open about his views, but he's also very thorough.
So, this fall of Assad, is it part of a chain of events which have happened in the Middle East region, which involves Israel's decimation of Hamas and Hezbollah, and then weakening of Iran, and of course the weakening of Russia?
It is part of not one chain but several chains. A shorter term chain, which is what happened over the last few months, let's say, or during the month and all, ever since the Hamas broke out and sort of and on when was it, May the 7th, October 7th. Yeah, October the 7th. So since then, I mean, you've had the Israeli genocide in Gaza, and that then expanded to Lebanon, where you had the attack on Hezbollah, and then of course assassinations in Iran. But this final blow on Damascus itself, even when Aleppo fell, people thought, well, all right, this has happened, a huge surprise, but I mean, the Syrian regime will certainly recover, and Russia will come to its aid. But none of that happened. Within days, they took Damascus. So you had the beginning. You had the events of the outbreak of the Hamas, and then the genocidal attack on Gaza, which is continuing to this day.
Yes.
And then after that you had Lebanon, and then you've had attacks on Iran, and that's one chain. But then there's a much longer chain, a much more important chain. Many years ago, the exact date, I think 2011 or something of that sort, the former General Wesley Clark of America had made it quite clear that he got a secret paper in which America had undertaken to bring about regime change in 7 countries and all, and that included and of that, the only country which is left, 6 of them they've brought about. Now Syria is the 6th. And Iran is the only one of the 7 which is still not, they haven't brought about regime change. You've had Libya, yes. You've had Somalia, you've had Ethiopia, you've had और कौन से countries हैं जो 6 जो बनते हैं Somalia वगैरह जो है, and Libya. So Iraq, beginning with Iraq, you might say, and तो वो 6 हो जाते हैं, और एक अभी सीरिया के साथ 6, and then and Iran is the one, and the immediate larger target, of course, would be Iran, and Iran has been attacked, as you know, with all kinds of attacks, assassinations, as well as those exploding devices, which Israel bought in huge numbers, and managed to sort of distribute it. And so the Israeli intelligence and American intelligence have been working very, very efficiently, very skillfully, but criminally, because they have been killing. And and a genocide is, one of the marks of a genocide is when you kill children, because children are the progenitors of the next generation and future generations. You kill the children, the race finishes. You kill 1,000 people, but jo bach jayenge, they will have children themselves and all, you see. So killing children, whether they're boys or girls and all, you're killing children and all, which is what, and they're deliberately targeted. 40,000 children have been killed. No, Gaza mein overall, the official figures are rubbish. 47,000, of whom at least half are women and children.
Exactly.
Half, and these numbers are huge underestimates.
Exactly.
So we don't know the exact numbers, but you can multiply.
Those buried under rubble and
buried under rubble, the rubble of whole neighborhoods. And as the United Nations has said, made it quite clear that this is, they can't formally call it genocide because they have to have an investigation process which takes a while, which is underway. But in effect, they have done that.
Exactly.
They have done that in all, you see. And America doesn't care a damn, because although genocide is the worst possible crime that any country can commit, because all the other crimes spring from this 2 crimes: undeclared war, and probably even more serious than that is genocide, because every other crime emerges from that crime. So, and you have America, which was born in genocide. You have Israel, which was born in genocide, and the genocide process in Palestine has been planned and implemented for almost a century, and in effect after the 1967 war, where then you had the Nakba, and then you had after each war with the Arabs and all, they've been expelling Palestinians and all. So initially it was 700,000 Palestinians. Now the total number of Palestinians expelled and their children is in the millions, and so this is a total genocide, which was planned, which is deliberate. America knows it, so now what we see today is an event in itself, but it is also the culmination of an ongoing process, and it is also a phase in that process, because that phase is now going to extend towards Iran, because that is part of the 7 countries whom America undertook to, had policy in that paper leaked, and an American general leaked that paper. And that paper is, and America doesn't, it denies it, but it doesn't care a damn if you believe it or not,
Yeah. Sir, IS, Daesh is
Yes.
active in this area since long.
Yes.
And according to some media reports, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham has its roots
Yes.
in the IS.
Yes.
Now they are trying to rebrand themselves as a separate entity
Yes.
from IS.
Yes.
Do you think this organization, HTS, will be able to succeed
Well,
in
this is
rebranding itself?
This is a very, very important question to which a lot of people respond to this question, but nobody knows quite for sure. 2 things. Number one, you're quite right. The leader Julani. He comes from the Jolan Heights or Golan Heights. In Arabic, the Egyptians pronounce the Jim as Gim.
Yes.
So Golan is actually Jolan. So the Jolan Heights, and he's Jolani, and he is from, that is his home, the Jolan Heights and all. Now he was, as you quite rightly say, with Al-Qaeda and Al-Nusra, and then allegedly, reportedly, he broke away from them. He had differences with them, and there are explanations for that. But remember, now he has a $10 million bounty on his head. And the Americans are the ones who gave him arms, supplied his forces with drones. Otherwise, do you think in 100 years he could just walk into Damascus, which he did? Even with all the corruption, with all the weakness, with all the deficiencies in the Syrian armed forces, and with all Bashar al-Assad's faults, you think this lot could easily could walk in this way? It was clearly they were supported by America and Israel.
Right.
Now, you think they will support somebody who is going to sort of go back to being ISIS? Or is he fooling them, or they have used him? Nobody knows the exact question to that. But he has given some two or three statements. One, he said that he will not target anybody. Syria belongs to everybody. And there will be no vengeance, and that his government will show, his cabinet will show that he's going to include people from all over as long as they're Syrians, and support the change of the order. At the same time, he has also said that I am a Salafi, I'm an Islamist, I'm not a terrorist. I'm not an Islamic terrorist. I'm not Daesh anymore. I associated with them when I felt that they were the answer to the challenge, to the problems. But then I broke away from them because I saw what they were doing, and their brutal, pointless, senseless massacres and all, which were criminal and nothing to do with Islam. So he is still Islamist. He's made that statement and all. On the other hand, he has been used by Israel and by America. So who is he outsmarting them? Are they outsmarting, using him, or is he outsmarting them? We can endlessly speculate, but the best thing is to wait and see. My own view is that the Americans know that even without Jolani, their influence, they are now coming in the hundreds, if not thousands, right in. You have Israel, which is bombing the entire military infrastructure. They've had 500 raids even since the change, and they've been bombing Syria for the past several years. So Syria is destroyed. So even if he wanted to, let's say he still has the ideology of ISIS, what can he do? What can he do? Saudi Arabia may be his new patron, but Saudi Arabia is itself moving away from Salafism. You find bin Salman, Mohammed bin Salman, MBS. And in fact, the Saudi ulama have issued a fatwa against MBS, saying that he's trying to he's bringing out a book. He wants to bring out one book in which the Quran, the Bible, and the Torah will be all together. and and also to build temples next to each other, a grand mosque, a grand Jewish temple, and a grand church, and all, showing his universality. Whereas the Arab, Salafi ulama have said that this is against Islam altogether. Islam is the one and only true religion, and all the other religions have been superseded. How dare he try to equate the two? So you can see there's going to be trouble also possibly in Saudi Arabia, but we'll see. So what will happen there? So if Syria is moving towards Salafism and Saudi Arabia is moving away from Salafism, then that will be another strange development. But so this is a very, very huge change, one of the biggest changes that has happened in the Middle East, and it will impact much larger than the Middle East, the larger Middle East right up to Iran, and therefore Pakistan, which neighbors that region, is an immediate neighbor and all. So let us see how these developments pan out. Maybe we'll have a more concrete idea in the next few weeks. Who is Jalani? What kind of cabinet and government he has, what kind of initial policies does he have, and what is his attitude towards America and Israel, who are destroying Syria even after the change.
So, sir, we're keeping in what you just said, how do you see this takeover of Damascus? Is it nationalistic in fervor, or it was sort of a jihad?
Well, I mean, he's a former jihadi, and he still is a Islamist, nationalist, but he doesn't believe in, you see, jihad. What does jihad mean? Islamic jihad in the West means a kind of violence and even terror. It almost becomes another name, but jihad is part of the religious obligation. Jihad means koshish, to strive to bring about something which is better, not effort. So jihad, karna, jihad. So I mean, these are. But but the vast majority of the Syrians, since a very long time, are much more secular than most other Arab countries, and they don't want how would I call it, an ideologically narrow, tyrannical state. They want to be democratic. They want to be maybe socialist. They want to be nationalist in terms of the Arab problem vis-a-vis Israel and as far as Palestine is concerned, because Palestine belongs to Bilad al-Sham. And Bilad al-Sham, which is the heart of Bilad al-Sham, it is Sham itself, which the Arabs pronounce Syria as Syria, because Sham is larger than Syria. It's right from southern Turkey down to Jordan and all. So Syria is the heart of Bilad al-Sham, and most people are nationalist, they're Muslim, but they have a much, but you have Syrian Christians also, and Lebanon was part of Syria. Lebanon has a lot of Christians, being the American University of Beirut used to be known as the Syrian Christian University, until the French came and divided, tore apart Syria and Lebanon, and now let's see what happens now. But I think so. He's going to be very careful. I think he will issue moderate, practical statements.
So, sir, with the Assad president, former president Assad, he has gone, and now he's in Moscow. Now Syria is in a greater risk of, falling in the hands of jihadists or Islamists, whatever way we can tell that. IS, Daesh could also re-establish its, writ in central.
If Jolani is working for ISIS, suppose that he is actually still an ISIS man, and he's changed it as a matter of tactics and has come in and will continue to work for ISIS, then that risk is there. But I doubt that very much.
But if that risk is there, then Israel is there.
Yes.
There is 1974 bilateral agreement between Syria and Israel for a buffer zone. Golan.
Which Israel has violated. And cancelled that agreement.
Exactly.
Unilaterally. Illegally.
But if there are Islamists or jihadists taking the writ over there, then there is a greater risk of Israel coming and invading or occupying larger chunk of Syria.
Well,
How do you see that development taking place?
Well, it's a very good question, but I would just say Israel doesn't make a difference between nationalists and Islamists. They see who are opposed to Israel. And both Arab nationalists and Islamists, oppose the existence of Israel because the way it came in. And so Israel's long-term plan is to fragment, to divide Syria, maybe to eliminate Syria as a country, because Syria there are many divisions in Syria. There's the south, there's the northeast, there's the north, there's the northwest, there's the central part. And people say that there are different groups led by Jolani, but those groups have their own agendas. Some may be more Islamist and some may be more nationalist. So you might have conflict amongst them. But these are all speculations by people who know Syria, but actually don't know the details like nobody knows, because it's so sudden and so big and so dramatic. So we will see. So I believe the Israelis made it quite clear that even liberated Syria is regarded by them as an enemy, and they know, as I said earlier, that Syria has always been the heart of Arab nationalism. Syria is the heart of Arab nationalism, even more than Egypt, if you go into history. Although Egypt under Nasser, yes, but Syria since the 19th century, has been, against Western imperialism, and then since Israel even more so. So I believe Israel is out to essentially destroy Syria and to sort of pave the way, along with America, for regime change in Iran. And the ultimate target, of course, the Ukraine war is meant to bring about ultimately regime change in Moscow itself. What is the ultimate target of all of this? The ultimate target is China. All of this which is happening is part of a long-term American process which was known under Obama as the pivot. To pivot. It looked like the pivot had gone quiet when Trump came in. But Biden, when he came in, carried on the same policy of Trump while still looking to pivot towards the East. Pivot means because they recognize that the only country in the entire world that can stand up to America is China. And America believes world peace depends upon the global hegemony of the United States. It will not tolerate an equal partner. And China is already a global economic power and cannot live off the goodwill and the pleasure of America. It has to protect its own sea lanes of communication, its own lines of communication. And even though it doesn't seek war, China throughout its history has not been an aggressive country. It does not seek to war. It seeks to sort of defend itself, all right. But if its lines of communication, because the Chinese economy is a global economy, it imports goods and raw materials from all over the world, Latin America, the Middle East. China is the largest oil importer in the world. And if America dominates the whole of the Middle East, and if it brings about regime change in Iran, then it will have, even though America doesn't need the oil itself, because Trump has said we will drill, frack to look for the tar oil, which of course is going to ensure the end of the world through climate change, climate warming and all. But he doesn't care about that. But he does not. But he wants to deny China the oil it needs, and China would go to any length to ensure that its economic development is not impacted. And therefore China will necessarily develop the military capability to defend its sea lanes of communication without having any aggressive intent towards any other power. It needs to protect itself. But America wishes to force a conflict upon China. Why? Because it fears that if it waits for another 10 years, China will become too strong. Because China is growing at such a fast rate. And America is the world's mightiest country, but it is in decline. And America's soft power and its ideology is also losing its attraction for Afro-Asia, for the Muslim world, and indeed inside Europe itself. Because Europe doesn't want to be chased out of Eurasia. and which America's aggressive policy towards Putin is bringing about. So although the European governments are for the American policy and want to defeat Russia in Ukraine, nobody wants to become totally dependent on NATO, because America will blackmail them, says you have to pay for this now. If you don't pay for this, I'll walk out of NATO. So they don't want to be in that position where their security is totally in the hands of another country, even though their governments are somewhat under the thumb of the United States. But the political opinion in most of the West European countries is against this kind of dependence. So the world is changing. What will emerge from it, no one can say with, because it's very, very complex. Even the world's fastest computer, which can make 1 billion calculations a second, will not be able to come up with an accurate prediction.
So that was a very, very comprehensive answer, and you've just told us how everything is being connected.
Yes.
Now, sir, since this takeover, Israel has conducted almost, as you also said, 500 sorties. It has destroyed the Syrian defense infrastructure, their navy, their air force, their weapon depot, their industries, everything has been destroyed.
They don't want Syria to recover.
Exactly. And Mr. Netanyahu said that, and their defense minister said that we are doing this to prevent these ammunition, weapons falling in the hands of the extremists. On the other hand, we see the Americans bombing the central Syria, saying that they have bombed the ISIS bases there. Turkey in the north.
Yes.
How do you see this scramble for Syria?
Well, this again is a very interesting situation, because Turkey in the northeast is attacking the Kurds there, the Syrian Kurds. And Turkey has a Kurdish problem inside Turkey itself, and has had to take very strong measures, in Iraq. Even when I was ambassador in Iraq, I remember that. So the Syrian Kurds, if they're influenced by the Kurds of Turkey and the Kurds, and they see themselves as a nation, like the Pashtun. The Pashtun are the largest tribal people in the world, and the second are the Kurds, and the third are the Baloch. So there are three major. There are other tribal societies, but which are known as tribal societies, and these societies, have a very strong sense of identity. Very strong. So you have Turkey, which doesn't want the Kurds to sort of be causing trouble inside Turkey itself, where a very large 20% of the population is supposed to be Kurdish, or maybe more. I mean, I'm not and the serious clashes have taken place. But the Americans have been supporting the Kurds, and so that could lead to a kind of clash between Turkey and the United States. Now, Turkey has also been has supported ISIS, because Turkey is gaining not only influence there, but it wants to return the Syrian refugees.
3.5 million.
3.5 million. According to some estimates, some said almost as 5, but 3.5. Now, how can they return to a totally devastated country? So Turkey cannot be in favor of totally destroying the entire economy in the name of destroying its military infrastructure and its chemical weapons. And according to Scott Ritter, Syria does not have chemical weapons. So even this accusation, I don't know, but I've heard a number of experts say Syria doesn't have, and apparently some report was also United Nations. I shouldn't sort of say something wrong, but a report, was it a US or a UN report, confirmed that Syria does not have chemical weapons and all. At one time it did have and all, and that led to conflict, with America also. But right now, so anyhow, Syria, they're talking about chemical weapons there. They're also talking about enabling the Israelis to return to the Golan, 70,000 Israelis. And just like they pushed Hezbollah away from the southern border, they want to push Syria away from its own Golan border. in order to make it so they've gone beyond, as you say, the buffer zone, which is illegal. There's a UN Security Council resolution 2253. I don't know if the number.
UN mission is there.
UN mission is there, and UN mission has criticized what's happened. So Turkey doesn't want to see. It didn't like Assad, and it tried to sort of have a good relationship with Bashar al-Assad, but Bashar al-Assad unfortunately proved to be in a way incompetent, unable to take decisions, and he disappointed both his supporters. Russia and Iran, and even to a certain extent Turkey, because Turkey wanted to sort of have a relationship that would sort of enable it to retain its influence in northern Turkey, and Assad had taken the view, which was correct, but they didn't have the strength to back it up, that no, please get out of Syria first, then we will have an agreement with you. Now Turkey was not going to do that. So these complications are there, but once again to emphasize, Turkey does not want to see Israel, backed by America, destroying Syria, because that will then, Turkey is a Muslim country, he has a Muslim population. His party is the Muslim party, even if it's a modern secular-oriented Muslim party, modernized Muslim party, but identifies itself, as an Islamic party and all. And Turks believe that Islamic civilization owes so much to the Turks, the Ottoman Turks, and the, before them also. So Turks are very proud of their identity, as Turks, as Muslims, as modern people, as, all the achievements that they have to their name. So we can see the elements of a very, very unstable situation developing in the region.
Sir, very direct question.
Yes.
Balkanization of Syria. Do you see it happening?
Well, as I say, there is a strong feeling that this is what Israel wants. This may not be what America wants. Okay. America might say that you have achieved your purposes. You have destroyed Syria as any possible. You've gone into Lebanon and destroyed Hezbollah. You have committed genocide, which we have supported, and called it something else, self-defense, against the Gazans. We now cannot allow China to steal a march over us, with the whole world saying that China is a peaceful country and that we are an aggressive country. We've achieved our purposes. America is supreme in the Middle East for the moment. Israel is totally safe for the moment. Now we need to satisfy those Arab regimes which are pro-us, particularly the Gulf regimes, and in particular Saudi Arabia. And for that, they need protection against their own people with regard to Palestine. So Trump might begin to look at some kind of two-state solution, which Biden used to just say but not do anything about. And Trump kind of rejects the two-state solution, but in practice now he'll say, we've won the victory, we're the masters. Now let's be fair to some of our friends, because, without their friendship, then we'll have to be perpetually fighting and defeating Arabs up to what time? Then we go to Iran, then we go beyond, etc., etc. So he calls himself a deal maker, not a war maker. So let us see whether Trump surprises us by being some kind of peacemaker, which would be a big surprise, but a somewhat pleasant surprise after what we've witnessed.
Fine.
Sir, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, in one of his interviews after Assad's departure, said that his country has reshaped Middle East. Blows dealt to Hamas, Hezbollah and Iran has led to the ouster of Assad. The Axis has not yet disappeared, but as I promised, we are changing the face of the Middle East. Now, I want you to go back to September 24th, UN General Assembly meeting. And Mr. Netanyahu flashed the map of Greater Israel.
From the sea to the river.
Yes, sir. Now, is Greater Israel in sight? Are they moving towards that direction?
Oh, there is a strong movement inside Israel, especially amongst the settlers in the West Bank and others. There are extreme groups who make Netanyahu look like a moderate, look like a Democrat.
Exactly.
So those people have always pushed for, the two blue lines on the Israeli flag. There's the Star of David, and then blue line to the left and right. One is supposedly the sea, and the other is the River Jordan. So from the sea to the river, and which they call Eretz Israel, which means Ard Israel. This is what Israel, this is the promised land that God has given us. And the irony is that this movement began in and is led by, even now, by the so-called Ashkenazi Jews, that's the European Jews, the Jews who come from Caucasia and who are descendants of a kingdom called the Khazari kingdom, and they don't have a drop of Semitic blood in them. They're Caucasians. The Oriental Jews who came from Iraq and Iran and Morocco and even Egypt, all those countries, those have Semitic blood in them, yes. The Sarafic. But the Ashkenazis, who have been the movement, the political movement, the builders of Zionism and all, and the creators of Israel, Ben Gurion and all of these things, and their names are all Polish and Russian. They took Jewish names, during that movement and all. Otherwise, they I don't know their Polish names and their Russian names, but all of these guys are Poles and Russians and East Europeans and descended from the Caspian region and all. So they are essentially Caucasians and all, pretending to be Semites.
So in connection with this with this question, with the fall of Assad,
yes,
we've already seen in the Middle East, is the anti-West and anti-Israel ideology, which was prevalent in the Middle East, is it finally dead and gone?
No, more than ever it's alive, because the humiliation doesn't lead to reconciliation. The elites will tend to bend the knee. The elites look, because they have wealth to protect, they have a luxurious life to protect, but the people are outraged. And the elites are very, very scared.
But we don't see any response in the Middle East.
Well, there was the Arab
world.
Spring. There was the Arab
Yes,
Spring.
sir.
You can have another Arab Spring, and you can have several Arab Springs. And ultimately, things do happen. How do revolutions take place? And when they happen, as we have seen in Syria, they happen like that.
Yes, sir, yes.
You see, huh? So those movements are there, and that is why these rulers of these countries, they want American protection essentially against their own people's outrage, because the people feel that, yes, they have differences amongst themselves. An Arab Egyptian might have a problem with an Arab Libyan or an Arab Syrian and all, but they also have a sense of being one people. The Arabs, it's like Muslims and all, we are all one ummah, but it doesn't mean that all Muslims love each other. Even within each country you have all kinds of things and all, you see. Huh? So there are levels at which identification, and when an outsider comes and threatens the entire ummah or the entire Arab nation, then from Morocco right up to Iraq and down to Sudan and all, they will become one there, as far as, and that is their power also. But so with their mutual differences and rivalries and differences, and at times they even fought with each other, but there is no doubt about it that the people feel totally betrayed, and that's a very uncomfortable. When the people feel, and it is, there was a very famous saying by the British philosopher David Hume, 18th century philosopher. He was saying that the force that is available to a people, when the people awake and aware of their situation, is far more than any military can deploy.
Exactly.
And that is why military regimes or dictator regimes have to keep the people divided, have to manufacture information, as Noam Chomsky's famous book said, so that they don't believe entirely in the truth, because once the people are aware of A, the truth, and B, their potential power, then no dictatorship can survive against them for long. For a while, yes, and that while could be 1 year, 10 years, even 50 years. But we've seen after 54 years what has happened in Syria.
Sir, Iran has lost a dependable ally.
Yes.
In Damascus.
That's right.
His presence was very important to maintain Hezbollah, to supply chain. Now there is a break on that. Hizb ut-Tahrir Sham, they view Iran as an opponent. They follow different interpretation of Islam. One is Shia, the other is Salafi.
Yes.
Iranian missions were ransacked
Yes.
after the collapse of
That's
Bashar
correct.
al-Assad regime. Iranian foreign ministers called it as a joint operation of Americans and Zionism. So how do you see this new game playing in the region, while now Iran is also trying to send a different message to Damascus to build the bridges with them?
Yes.
So how do you see Iranian role in the future of Syria?
Well, again, this is one of those very pertinent, important questions to which nobody has a sure answer right now, because the whole situation has changed. Okay. Iran right now is also aware of the fact that America, I mean, Israel is a small partner, but America has been determined since a very long time to bring about, and more so since the Islamic Revolution, to bring about regime change in Iran. And even more so since Iran has been so influential in the axis of resistance, in supporting the axis of resistance in the Arab world, which was led by Syria, but included others also. And therefore, 7 countries, they wanted regime change. The last one to be Iran. They've done 6 now with Syria. And so Iran is number 7, and Iran is more than well aware of it. And Iran is very well aware of the previous attempts at regime change in Iran. So they first have to make sure of their own regime stability. Now here, Russia has been weakened by the Ukraine war. But Russia is not defeated, and Ukraine cannot defeat Russia. And with Trump coming in, there's another uncertainty, because Trump has a certain admiration for Putin. For Putin. And Trump says, yes, I'm not scared of him. We can go to nuclear war, but who can win a nuclear war? And Russia is a nuclear power. So if we have a clash and we have a fight, who will win? America? Russia? Or will we both destroy each other and maybe the whole world and all you see? Similarly with China, whether you like China or you don't like China, you have it. So Putin wants to build on that, and as Putin has said, a very important, Trump has said, and I mentioned this in my article also, before he made this statement, so Trump might have read my article. I had said that Trump will try to offer a deal on Ukraine with Russia, with Putin, that will favor Russia. And Russia, he knows he can't defeat Russia in Ukraine. Yes, he can prevent Russia, and they have prevented Russia from, conquering that part of Ukraine which is Russian majority. The Donbass and going down.
Donetsk region.
Yes, exactly. So he will offer a deal that we can get an agreement according to the Minsk agreements.
Yes.
And then we can sort of cooperate, but you need to move away from China.
Exactly, sir. Exactly.
And Trump has recently said, I am aware of this alliance, and I want to undo this alliance between Russia and China. And Putin has made it quite clear that that will never happen, because Russia lost the Cold War, because of Kissinger's success in ensuring that China's had a better relationship with America than Russia, and Russia had a better relationship with America than China, and kept them apart. And they have their historical differences, of course, China and Russia. But right now, Putin and Xi Jinping are aware that our strength lies in our alliance, and they now call each other allies, and they will not allow Trump or anyone to drive a wedge between them, because strategically that would be a disaster for both of them. So now if that doesn't happen, then what will Trump do? Will he carry the war in Ukraine even further, or will he try and do a deal where Putin offers something, but not this which he needs.
Exactly. Sir, we are running fast out of time, and there's so much to discuss with you. It's amazing. Sir, he talked about Iran.
Yes.
What is the future of Iran? I want to talk about other ally of Bashar al-Assad, Russia. Now, Russia has bases, and it had naval base established in somewhere 1971.
Yeah,
then
2 bases. Yeah.
It has established air
That's
base,
right.
which is very important for, and they symbolize Russia's ambitions, not only within the region, but
It's
also
only
in
base
Africa.
abroad it has.
Exactly,
America has
sir.
1,000 bases.
Now, how will this, I mean, first of all, is Russia out of Middle East now?
Russia can never be out of the Middle East. Because Russia is a great power. It's not a great economic power, but it's a great military power and a nuclear power. And America can never meet the aspirations of the Arab people, of the Muslim people. And therefore, any regime which gets too close to America will have a problem with its own people and will never feel safe. So Russia and China, while they're together with each other, will always provide an alternative to people who have reason to be very upset with America. Now, America cannot offer a deal which does justice to the Arabs and the Muslims, because they would have to then reverse so much policy ever since the end of World War II, particularly with regard to Israel and all. So, and that is politically impossible for Trump to do, nor is he inclined to do it, because, I mean, he's so pro his son-in-law and all, Jewish, and he's close to Israel enormously, and Americans and the Jewish lobby, etc., AIPAC and all, very influential. So Russia is not defeated. Russia has difficulties in Ukraine, but now with Russia exiting from Syria, those forces which they had in Syria are available now to Russia in Ukraine. And so they will actually gain from this setback, big setback for Russia. But on the Ukraine theater, the coming back of its forces and not needing to look after Syria in a military sense will enable them to bring even greater military pressure on Ukraine. And everybody accepts, even Zelensky, that they can only hold out. They can't defeat Russia, and that Putin is supported by more than 90% of Russians in this thing, because of their long-range attacks on Russia, and they know very well that Russia had recognized Ukraine. Russia had recognized Ukraine in its current borders on condition that it would not join NATO, and this was promised to them by George Bush the First. Promised to them, which Clinton went back on saying, where's the paper? They said, but when we announce things and we make it verbal, you don't need a piece of paper. It was announced to the world. No, you're all wrong. So Russia remembers that and says, well, we made that big mistake. We wanted to.
Sir, 2 small questions.
Yes.
One is relating to Turkey.
Yes.
They have bilateral arrangements, bilateral mechanism to talk about their, bilateral issues, particularly with regard to, refugees and Kurds issues. But, according to media reports, the President Bashar al-Assad rebuffed,
Yes, he said, please vacate my country and then we can talk.
And this led to Turkey giving green signal to the rebel forces to march on Damascus.
Yes, correct.
How do you see, these reports that is Turkey behind this change in Damascus?
Oh, Turkey is a winner.
Okay.
Turkey is amongst the winners. There's America, Israel, Turkey, and to some extent Saudi Arabia. But as I submitted, the situation for Saudi Arabia is quite complicated, because of the internal situation there and the relationship with the Arab peoples, and its own Arab people and all. For Turkey, they had a huge problem with Assad. Erdogan reached out to Assad. Assad, being very legalistic, said, you vacate my country, then we can deal with this issue, and maybe you can have influence there, but you have to vacate my territory. You're in Syrian territory and all. So if I vacate here, then I lose my leverage and all. So then he joined them, but he joined them out of immediate reasons. He has no further common interest with Israel and America in Syria. Now the difference will take place. He wants to come across as a friend of the new regime, if the new regime can be stable and is not anti-Turkey, and if it is and is not using Kurds against Turkey, then I believe Turkey will not wish to stay on in Syria. It is only the reason it believes that the Kurds, whether of Syria or Iraq or inside Turkey itself, are a problem for the Turkish government and the Turkish country and all, and therefore Syria should not add to that problem. So if the new regime can satisfy Turkey on that account, then it will have no reason not to come on their side if it can stabilize itself and achieve the support of the Syrian people. And it seems to be making statements to that effect.
And one small question,
Yes.
sir, again. There was a meeting in Doha under Astana format.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, where, Russian foreign minister was also there.
Yes, yes.
Do you think the fate of President Assad was sealed during that meeting?
I think it was sealed because of longer-term factors, but that also contributed to it. But it's not the major thing. The major thing is that he alienated one by one all his friends. You see, and ultimately, even when you have an alliance and you want assistance from your friends. Very often, it happened with Pakistan, with China in East Pakistan, when we asked for military aid, when the crackdown was taking place in East Pakistan, Zhou Enlai told Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, we cannot give you aid to suppress your own people.
Very relevant.
And so if China remains true to that, you see, philosophy, then of course, I mean, there's a limit to how much they can expect. So China will not interfere to that. It will, if it makes an alliance with one country, it wants that country to have the support of its own people. Now here it's very important. Pakistan is the only country, or more than any other country in the world, where China's major asset in Pakistan is not any political party. It is not any political leader. It is the people of Pakistan. You go to Quetta, you go to Karachi, you go to Lahore, you go to Gilgit-Baltistan, and you say, who's the best friend of Pakistan? People out of religious sense might say Saudi Arabia, out of emotional sense might say Turkey, but say, no, the friend who can come to your assistance and is sincere to you, and you need to be sincere to that friend. Who? China.
Yes.
And that is the asset. So they will never, whichever country, whether it's Pakistan or whether it's any other country, if it is not friendly with its own people, then China will say, you please work this one out because we don't want your people to dislike us.
Sir, final question, sir. Now, two countries are left with very strong anti-Israel rhetoric. One is Iran, but it has already softened. The other is Pakistan. What do you suggest for Pakistan?
Well, unfortunately, because of our state, our rhetoric means nothing. Our rhetoric is entirely directed at our own people and to a certain extent diplomatically towards our friends. In fact, if you know, the Syrian ambassador is reported to have protested that there was not much sympathy coming from Pakistan, for our government. Just before the fall of Assad, he made that statement. It got reported in the Pakistan papers and all, that the Syrian ambassador in Pakistan said, "वो हमदर्दी नहीं है हमारे सीरिया के लिए आपके हुकूमत की तरफ से, not अवाम की तरफ से." Meaning, incidentally, that because you're under the influence of external powers, you don't like Assad, so that sympathy hasn't been shown. Not the people of Pakistan. So the rhetoric of Pakistan is always calculated to satisfy the people of Pakistan, because if you were to take, I remember when the Ramadan war took place between Israel and Egypt. I was in Egypt and all, you see. And the Arabs reminded us there was a bit of a delay in Pakistan announcing assistance for Egypt. So the some Arab reporter said, isn't Pakistan going to do anything? Isn't Pakistan going to do anything? And so Pakistan did announce and did send assistance, medical assistance and all of that and all. But when he was making this argument, Bhutto had made a statement that Pakistan is always available there, but our Arab friends are not always sympathetic to us when we have problems. And to that one, I won't take his name, Arab journalist told me that the reason for that is we have the choice. We have the choice to support Pakistan or not to support Pakistan. You don't have the choice because your people will rise up against you if you don't support an Arab country that is being attacked by Israel or anyone. Your people are with us, so you will follow your people even if we don't respond, even if we don't reciprocate. And we know that, and that is why. He's telling me privately, they're not publicly. So that is how the Arabs have seen Pakistan, even in those days. Today, aap to aur bhi lachar samjhe jate hain, that you are even more without options. So your rhetoric can be as fierce as, because you don't have, a country of 250 million is not playing a role. Another thing, out of the 7 countries whom America wanted to bring about regime change, Pakistan was not amongst them, which is of course very good. And at the same time, you can ask yourself, why, if we are so fierce in our support, why weren't we there amongst that 7? Now, sometimes they have brought about, as they have done in Pakistan, but not because of the Middle East. As you know very well, recently they've brought about regime change in Pakistan, but not because of the Middle East.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a very interesting, very educative 1 hour. As you all know, the things are happening in Syria. The situation will continue to evolve over many months. At the present, internally, a new dispensation is there, but it's an interim arrangement. The problem, or for the new arrangement under Mr. Mohammed al-Bashir, is to bring these groups together, which are all fighting for their turf, and to bring about peace and stability in the country. While it's a very promising thing, which is event which is happening for the Syrians, it can also descend the country into chaos and violence, and the government will have to be careful about that. Thank you for watching Ambassador's Lounge. Please subscribe to our channel and do give us your comments so that we can make things better here. Thank you and see you next time.